Hey everyone, this is Dan Blewett, and I want to say thank you and welcome you to my Pitching Isn't Complicated pitching webinar. So today we're going to cover pitching mechanics, and I'm going to give you 5 very important pitching flaws that are really crucial to fix now because they're early chain kind of things. So if we fix them, they're going to influence the rest of the pitching motion, and they're going to change for the better lots of other stuff down the road. So there's tons of different flaws and tons of things that you as a parent or coach or player have probably seen. You're like, man, that doesn't look quite right to me. But it's not always the symptom that we want to address, it's the cause. And a lot of times we have to look back farther up the chain to figure out what's causing the problem that you see. So if you're ready, let's get going here, and we'll tackle this problem together. So first thing, I want to make sure you know a little bit about me and my backstory. So obviously I'm Dan. I grew up in Bel Air, Maryland. So you can see young Dan there. I think I'm maybe 12, 13. And I love pitching. I started playing when I was 8, and I grew up into the young man you see there. That was me in high school, I think junior year or senior year. And then you can see my parents, Bill and Joanne, supported me every step of the way. And, I wouldn't be here without them, both physically because they gave birth to me, but just, they paid for my college tuition, and I left without any debt. And they said, you do you, follow your dreams, we'll support you. And they didn't support me financially after college. I supported myself, but because they made such sacrifices to pay for my education, and they never said, go get a job, like, why are you still wasting time? They always were just, Daniel's going to pitch, and if Daniel wants to pitch, he's going to pitch. So I'm super thankful that they're in my corner the whole way. And then obviously on the far right, after my second All-Star appearance, which that photo with my parents, I finished my season, my career with the Long Island Ducks in 2016. And that might have been from one of the last days of my career because that photo was taken at the Southern Maryland Blue Crab Stadium, which is where I threw my final pitch. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was my final pitch. So, I got a ton out of my career. I wanted to be a major leaguer. I didn't make it there. I fell short, but I did everything in my power to get there. I was a late bloomer. I had Tommy John surgery twice. And, that was a big moment in my life. And it was what really kind of defined my career and defined who I am, because I had to come back from that, and it was such long odds, and it was such a long time away from the game. And I always had elbow problems as a kid, and I didn't understand why, and it wasn't my fault, it wasn't fair, but you just have to deal with it, and you have to find a way to move on. And I always tried to improve my mechanics, and I learned a ton about rehab and mechanics and pitching, trying to stay on the field and trying to be as good of a pitcher as I could. So that's kind of why I'm here today. And, so what I do now, I own Warbird Academy, which is a baseball and sports performance facility in Normal, Illinois. We train a lot of baseball, softball, and volleyball players. We train kids of all sports, but that's the majority of our clientele. And we have our own teams. I'm wearing a Warbird Senators hat. I'm a 14U coach this year. I'm also owner, along with my partner Lucas, of Warbird Academy and the Warbird Senators Baseball Club. So we have 6 teams, and I'm a head coach for the first time, which is also very eye-opening. And it's very different going from instructor to head coach. So obviously my first book, 2013, Pitching Isn't Complicated. It's on Amazon. It's why this course is like an update for it, because books for teaching physical movement, they're not the best tool. Video is a great tool. And so my goal is, instead of making people scour YouTube for what they need to get better, I can have it all in one place, and you can go start to finish with the right videos tailored to you. So that's my goal. And my other course, Ace of the Staff, is very high-level pitching mental concepts, which is going to be right for everyone once they get to a certain level. And I'm really excited. That was my first one, and I'm really passionate about the mental side of the game. So here's some reasons that you should probably listen to what I say. So there's some naysayers out there, and I'm pretty conspicuous on the web. And, you found me through my articles or my videos or my podcast or whatever. And you could easily be like, this guy's been hurt twice. He's had elbow problems his whole life. Why would I want to listen to him? Well, number one, I didn't deserve any of that. That was just sort of how I threw. And back when I was a kid playing baseball, they didn't have pitching lessons. They didn't have all the resources we have today. And I just had elbow problems starting at 15. But what I learned trying to come back from them was how I could hopefully avoid them and what I could do better to improve my mechanics, so I take stress off my elbow and my shoulder, but also what I could do in rehab and strength training to bolster my body. So I just want kids to avoid the 4.5 years that I spent on the bench. Those are hard years. It's hard just going one day at a time for 700 days in a row, which is what it was between both of my surgeries. It was more than 700 days. And it's just so hard. So I want to help young players avoid that. I want to help them avoid my mistakes. I made so many. And as I grew up from this 80-mile-per-hour kid who had a hammer curveball, that was the only reason I got to play in college, because I didn't have a scholarship. You know, my coach, when he came and recruited me, I was 78 to 81. I hit 83 once. And he said, but your curveball is the best I've seen in 2 decades. He said, if you get to the mid-80s, if you're 85, 86, like, you know, you'll be able to get hitters out. And you can get Division I hitters out with that curveball right now, but you don't have the rest of it. You don't have the command. You don't have the velocity to be a Division I pitcher yet. So I took that to heart, and I got to work. And I didn't know what to do, but I listened to my coaches. I bugged my strength coach night and day for what else can I do. I learned about nutrition. I scoured the internet, and I started to see progress. And it was a slow progress for me. I threw harder, but I'd still get hit. You know, after my sophomore year, I was 86 to 89, but I didn't have a good changeup or anything. So I taught myself a changeup. And all these things over time, I was always trying to get better. And it's not just the stuff that I did that worked for me. It's still all the other stuff that will work for other players. And what did he do? What did I learn from this player and from that coach and that coach? I'm definitely not the guy who's going to say, I did it this way, you should do it that same way. I did a lot of things that I know work or don't work, but I've also been around a ton of really good players and good coaches where I know that not everything that I did works for them, and not everything they did would work for me. And even though that guy's really good and better than I was, the way he does stuff isn't maybe the right thing for me or for a 14-year, 12-year-old kid. So I feel like I'm pretty objective, and I have everyone's best interest at heart. I'm just really passionate about giving back, and I got way more out of baseball than I really should have. But I've done a lot of pitching lessons, so I've probably done over 7,000 at this point, being a full-timer in the off-season with my academy. And what you learn in instruction is you learn a method. So you watch, you analyze, you say, okay, here's A, B, C, D, and E. Which of those flaws needs to be addressed first? I'll go with B. And then with B, which drills address that? Well, A, B, and C. So I'll give him drills A, B, and C, but that's too much for a 12-year-old, so I'm going to give him just drill A this week. And if he gets really good at it, then I'll give him a little less dose of drill A, and then I'll give him a bigger dose of drill B. And then after a couple weeks, drill A and B are getting pretty easy, I'll give him drill C. And it's always been this if then that, if this then that, and then constant reassessment and readjusting. So pitching mechanics are crucial. They're really, really important, but we have to know how to address them from the root causes so that over time we're addressing everything else that comes after. You know, if you have a flat tire, you can't maybe just address the flat tire. Maybe you're driving on a really potholy road on your way to work and you keep getting flat tires. Well, maybe you need to pick a different route. And then that solves the problem. It's not the tire, it's the route that you're taking, right? Or maybe you don't have enough air in your tires, or maybe you buy cheap tires, or maybe your alignment's off, so they're getting rubbed a little bit wrong. Your camber, what's the other one? I used to be a car guy. But everything has a solution that's farther up the chain in most cases than saying, hey, just get your elbow up. It's not just get your elbow up, it's why is your elbow low and what's causing your elbow not to work the way it should. So again, a program or series of drills, it's not magic. It's not a magic pill. I can't say, hey, do this drill and it fixes you. Drills are a tool to feel something that then we fold into our regular mechanics. But we have to constantly address. That's why I can't make a cookie cutter program and sell it to somebody, because I don't want to do that, because it's not going to be right. If it's right for Jimmy, it's not going to be right for Johnny. If it's right for Timmy, it's not going to be right for Tommy. Every pitcher is different, and we mostly do the same stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. I teach the same 3 or 4 drills to every pitcher because they're still pitchers, right? They're still pitchers. Every human being breathes air, drinks water, needs food, right? There's still similarities, but the question is, why are we doing it? And what's the long-term vision? And what are they focusing on when they're doing that drill? I have a drill that I could do 15 different ways. And I could have 15 different kids doing the same drill, and they're all thinking about something different. when they're doing it. Okay, so drills aren't a magic pill, but we need to constantly reassess where we are today so we can do the right drills in the right dosage so that we're improving our mechanics over time. Because good mechanics, they're going to give us control, they're going to give us velocity, and they're going to hopefully reduce the likelihood for injury. Now, that's a double-edged sword because when you throw harder, which good mechanics provide you, you open yourself up to more injury. The faster your arm's going, the more those soft tissues are at risk. Guys don't pull and tear their quad muscles when they're not very fast. But Olympic level sprinters, they're so fast and they put so much force through their legs that they pull their hamstrings and they pull their quads. Their body finds the weak link and the weak link pops. So as much as good mechanics are crucial to preventing injury, they're also part of the mechanism for injury, because when we throw harder, we're putting more stress through all these joints, and you'll be hard pressed to find a guy who throws 96, 97, 98 miles per hour all the time who doesn't have arm problems either in his past or is having them now or has them in the future. Just throwing harder is great. It gives you a much more viable baseball career, but just remember, I won't tell you that good mechanics prevent injury. They help to reduce the likelihood, but they also provide you with more chances and more opportunities to get hurt. Because unfortunately, coaches pitch the best pitchers more than the worst pitchers too. And overuse is a big problem. Okay, so how do we get good mechanics? When I was a kid, we didn't do lessons. I did my first lesson when I was 15. I learned how to throw a curveball, and I got it. It clicked. That was it. I learned from my coaches, and they tried to spend as much one-on-one time with us as we could, I guess, and I just kind of figured it out. I think I was really lucky just to have naturally pretty good mechanics as a kid. And now, as a head coach, this is my first year as a head coach, I realize how hard it is to single kids out and to work on their unique problems in a team practice, because we have 15 kids running around and we have to work on defense. We have to do this. We can break up into stations, but it's still tough for me to give all my attention to one kid and then to make a plan and make progress on just him in a given practice. It's tough. So private lessons are great. They give you the tools you need to improve your unique body and swing and throw and mechanics and flaws and all that stuff. So private instruction is important, but we also need a thorough assessment so we know what we're starting with, and we also need an assessment of our long-term goals. What could we be? We need to see the future while we're still focused on the present, and then we need to piece that together with stepping stones. A throwing routine is crucial, and focus on the details is crucial. So if you take my course and you go through these drills that I give you, you can't just go through them with, I'm just throwing the ball. It's laser-like focus that still makes the difference. I could do a drill and get so much more out of it than the next guy because I know exactly what I'm trying to accomplish, and I refuse to take a pitch off or a throw off in the outfield in pregame just to let my mind wander. I'm focused on every single throw counts. So look, if you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for the rest of his life, right? I don't want to package up a program that you have to do, and then when the program's over, you're like, what do I do next? I don't want to like constantly charge you a monthly fee to analyze your mechanics, and then every month you have to redo it again. That's not fair to you. I want to teach you what I know. I work with kids every day. I analyze them. I go over the mechanics with their parents on their first lesson, and we go through it step by step so I can teach them. And I use plain language, and I'm passionate about that. I don't want to make it more complex. I'm not here to prove how smart I am by using big words. I was a philosophy major in college. I double majored in philosophy and psychology. I know plenty of big words. Some of my favorite words are big words. But they don't have a place in education for most people. Tesla CEO Elon Musk, he gave a speech about his new battery technology, and I read this in a great book about communication and storytelling, and they transcribed it, and it came in at a 4th grade reading level. One of the most brilliant men of our generation speaks to the masses in plain language, 4th grade reading level. He wanted to allow everyone to hear his message and understand it and feel clear about what he was providing as a company. He didn't need to say all the technical mumbo jumbo. He didn't need to make a jargon. He didn't need to prove his intelligence. He just needed to make it clear to everyone. And that's what I hope to do. So that's really one of my big goals. So as we systemize my brain, it's tough to figure out how do we give the quick decisions. The human brain is so complex and so interesting and fascinating. And as I started to try to figure out how we can train our employees to have other pitching coaches and our coaches in our baseball organization, as I tried to figure out how can I give them my knowledge so they can do great pitching lessons in a similar manner to mine, so there's a consistent brand in our baseball academy, and how can we all be on the same page, teaching the same stuff and seeing the same stuff throughout our teams, our organization. So it was like, okay, here are all the things that I see when I watch a young man pitch. Here's all the flaws that I would say are flaws, the things that I try to correct. And then with all those, there's drills that go with each one. And then with all the drills, there's an order of operations. We don't just start with this one. We have to start with this one first, because if we do this one, the next thing will probably change and it might be gone. It might be cleared up. This thing might change 4 flaws beyond it. And we did one thing and fixed 5 things. So the human body is fascinating. It's a big chain. And so this is kind of how you can conceptualize my system for helping pitchers, and this is included in my course as well. There's one of these for every single flaw, so you can understand it. Elbow shoulder line. Does the elbow fall below the line made by the shoulders? We call this a low elbow. And then I kind of explain a little bit more what we do and don't want. This is what the people call quote unquote throwing like a girl, which is not a nice thing to say, or pushing the ball. We need the elbow to stay in line with the body, not jump ahead, okay? And then I have a separate little video, like a 1 to 2 minute video explaining what this flaw looks like. So we go through it in the analysis video, and then I also have a separate video for each flaw that you can refer to if it applies to you. And then we have the fixes. So right here we have how to improve your front side hip action. This is the lawnmower drill, this is the rocker drill, and then did you fix some other things? So this is sort of the solution to all that. All right, so that's sort of the way my system works. And the order is crucial, again, because many flaws are slaves to the other earlier ones. So just because you see low elbow doesn't mean like, hey, just get your elbow up. It just doesn't work that way. It's not that easy. The elbow is probably low because something else down the earlier up the chain is not doing its job, and then this one suffers after it, okay? So it all boils down to 26 mechanical flaws, or what I put in my course, and there's like 3 to 5 fixes for each one. You can say, wow, that's 100 things. That's going to be way too much. Most drills fix multiple flaws. So you might be doing the rocker drill, for example, which every pitcher in my organization does. And that probably fixes 6 or 7 or 8 different flaws when it's done well, when it's done with focus, when that's the right part of their routine. So it's not going to be this like crazy web where it's, again, my goal is simplicity, and it's all going to boil down to flaws, to drills, to which drills do I do at home, in a long toss, in a catch session. Here they are. This is my list. It's 6 things. That's what I do. And then when I reassess, I go through my mechanics again. I check, I don't have that flaw anymore. Now my order of operations should be F, G, H, I, J. Okay, so that's sort of how this all works. So I use Trello for this. It's an amazing tool where you can drag and drop, and I'll show you this once we get going in a second, how you just take a card like this one, and I just drag it into this list, and then you can transfer that list over to another board, and then another board, and then you'll always have it on your phone where you can at a glance say, here's my flaws, here are my drills, here's what I'm doing today. Very, very simple. So after we assess your flaws, then we assign drills to them. So we have different types: field drills, teaching drills, routine drills, just so you know which ones are appropriate for at the field versus in a more controlled setting where you have plenty of time, or which ones you can do in your living room. And then which drills you're going to do for the rest of your life. There's some drills that I will give a kid that they're kind of like rocket boosters. They're only going to do that drill until they get it, and then they're never going to do it again. So you don't have to do everything for the rest of your career. There's a lot of drills that are routine drills that you'll do for the rest of your life. I told a kid I worked with last night that I taught him 3 drills. I said, I did these 3 drills my whole career. Not all of them, because I didn't learn them all young, when I was completely young, but I did them until my very last day in a baseball uniform. Until I took my baseball costume off for the last time, I did these drills every day in pregame at 3 p.m. on the outfield. So it doesn't change whether you're 10, 11, 12. We still want to have the right drills for you. And then lastly, you're going to take this and you're going to rinse and repeat. Give it a couple weeks after you start your drill plan. And then 2 weeks later, reassess, go through the videos again. You'll be better at it. You'll continue to learn because you'll go through the videos so many times and you'll get so much contact time watching mechanics and assessing mechanics. And when you're constantly doing it, just like I did over 7,000 pitching lessons, you just learn better ways to do it. And my course, I promise you, will evolve over time. This course will get better. So when you take it, give me feedback. Say, hey, this is a little bit tough for me. Can you explain this a little more? Can you film another video here? Because I feel like I don't quite get this well enough. This will get better. You will get better. And you will be a fantastic baseball dad or pitching coach. Or I hope every pitcher who's watching this wants to be your own pitching coach. Because every throw you make, and you'll make on average about 10,000 a year. Every one of those 10,000 throws is important. And most of those 10,000 will not come with a pitching coach staring you down. They won't. They'll be you on your own in the outfield warming up. So how good are you as your own pitching coach? How focused are you on making every throw count and making every throw purposeful? That's the real big thing. So let's go over 5 big pitching flaws that are going to make a huge difference in your mechanics. And these are ones I want to give you today to take home and start working on if you feel like they apply to you and the pitcher in your life. So we're going to shoot over to this screen here. So let me you can meet all the players here. So here is that PDF that I talked about. So you can see a little bit different color scheme, but 16, 11B, right? So all the different flaws. So right here, if you check off number 18 on your list, here's a quick explanation, another quick explanation, and then a explanation of what you're going to do about it. So this is where we take a flaw and assign a drill to it, okay? This is example pitching drills. So in fact, let's jump to example pitching flaws. So this is a sample where if you say, hey, I have a stride direction, we've identified I have a stride direction problem, let's drag that into my list. So right here, boom, it's part of my list. Then I transfer this to another one. I again go through this guy here. So let's say stride direction. All right, stride direction, I'm gonna do these 2 drills. You add those to your drill list. And then we have a plan. So Trello is this amazing little product where you can add cards. So thanks for attending my webinar. And from there, you can add more. You can drag and drop them around. You can, add a team member to it. So your dad and your coach could all be on the same board. So you're, aware of what you're doing. You can click through it. You can make a detailed description. You can comment on all stuff. You can add attachments. You can put videos in here. You can make checklists. It's a really powerful free tool. It's pretty awesome. So, and then obviously you can delete stuff. There you go. Okay. So we'll keep this up here. And then here's the other players in this this webinar. So we've got the 4 main analysis videos that I created. So they have at the title slide all the ones that are contained in that view. So this is the arm side view flaws, has number 1, 1B, 2, 3, 17, 10, blah, blah, blah. So, and then I have a sweet jump list here where you click this chapters list and you can just jump right to that spot in the video where that one is. So we're actually going to start with handbrake. Boom, right to handbrake. So here in the main video part, you'll see the flaw identified, highlighted. So we're looking at number 2 right now. And lead hip movement. There's a master bank here as well, so you can just kind of stay on track. So everything you need, and then the mouse cursor is highlighted just like mine is here as well. So as we go through, we got one more player to introduce. This is Cole. So Cole is a pitcher I work with. He graciously allowed me to analyze him here on this course, and we're going to talk about number 1, hand brake. So this is the first of the 5 that I'm going to cover today. So watch how Cole's hands brake. So number 1, his hands are in a good position. They're right at his chest. They move up a little with his knee, and then they go out. So see how his elbow picks up right there, how it's kind of pointing out? And then his glove is going to fold more about out and around than it is up and down, right? So it's kind of like he's hugging a tree. It's a big, wide handbrake. So let's go from the side view here too. So he breaks his hands, and his hands mostly go out. His pitching hand goes down a little bit, but for the most part, his handbrake is out to the side and around. So now I'm going to introduce the next flaw because these are going to go hand in hand. We have to explain why one caused a problem with the next. So landing position right here, when your foot just touches down on your stride, right there. That's when the stride is over, and this is an incredibly crucial, it's the most crucial position of a pitcher's delivery. So landing position, we need our chest at about 4 o'clock. So if home plate is, well, we'll say 9 o'clock right now. So home plate is 12. His chest right now is facing at about 10. This here is 3. So 12, his chest. We're looking right at the center of his chest. 11, 10, that's where he lands. 9, 8. So high-level throwers, they land with their chest facing slightly backwards, slightly angled backwards, and this gives them maximum shoulder-hip separation, which, again, the flaw you're looking for here is chest direction. So which direction is the chest facing? That is going to tell you most of what you need to know about shoulder-hip separation, which is a very important concept. But again, in my interest in keeping this simple, this is the thing we're really looking for. I look for where their chest is. So his chest right here, if he landed like this, he'd be perfect. His arm timing is not perfect, so we'll address that separately. But with his front shoulder and his chest, that's where we want him to land. But the problem is he gets there early when he's still in the air with his stride, okay? So he's in the air with his stride. He's not touched down yet. And so his hips start to rotate open. See how it's going through 4. Now it's at 3. Now it's at about 2 when he lands, between 2 and 3. So that rotation that he did in the air, if he did that when his foot landed, that would be adding velocity to his throw. But since he was rotating in the air before his foot was down, he gets no credit for it, and it puts more stress on his elbow. Research is very clear from the ASMI that when the hips rotate in the air before the foot hits, it adds stress to the elbow. So that's one of the major problems. So the question is, why, though, does he land open? So it's not just the position in itself, it's why does he land open, and how can we get him by fixing things up the chain to get him to land closed? So the handbrake is one of those major problems. And it might not seem like a big deal, and a lot of pitchers, I wouldn't say a lot, but many pitchers do break their hands outward. But here's the problem. Watch his glove arm. Watch his glove arm. It goes out, and it goes around, and it gets to the top right there. And then because it's up, it continues on that sort of rotational path. So it's making this very big horizontal circle, right? And because of that, as that arm starts to then go on the side of its body, it takes the chest with it, all right? That's one of the main reasons he's landing too far open and throwing slower and putting more stress on his elbow. So if you watch this young man here, watch how his hands go down. And they go down, they go up, and they go down. That rhythm is important because these two need to time up. The length of the arm, the way the glove arm goes down and goes up, it has to match the foot. Okay, so let's go through his video again from the front view. So this is front view flaws. So let's pull this one up. And then I'm going to click here and let's go to handbrake. So let's watch this young man with his handbrake because he does a good job with it. Oops, I guess I clicked the wrong one. Handbrake. Didn't jump. Interesting. Okay, so let's go to handbrake. There we are, right there. Oh, I think it did jump to the right spot. It just was a little bit in front. So as we're watching, see that green line I've drawn? I've drawn on all these videos to illustrate where I need to. So watch his hands go down with his knee, and then they sort of come up at about a 45-degree angle, and you'll see this green line come in. They go down at that angle instead of hugging. So when it goes down at that angle, it allows that hand to take a longer path up. Plus, the bonus is when his arm is on this side of his body, his chest is going to stay closed. And because it's going up, it has no reason to want to rotate open too soon. Okay? So the hand direction is extremely important in keeping them on time and getting that chest to sync up with the front side. So right there, his chest is back because his front shoulder's up, and it stays up and it gets to level. and he's in a great position right there. So you can see the difference here, but he's between 3 and 4. Shoulders are level, arm timing is good. That's the position we want to land in, and because of his handbrake, that's just one factor, he can get that easily. And because Cole does not have a handbrake that goes down first, his arm gets to the top too soon, and it just like doesn't want to hang out there, so it continues to rotate, and that's why he lands open way too much. So those two flaws go hand in hand. We need to have our chest back at about a 4 o'clock angle. So if you take video of the pitcher in your life, or if you're a pitcher here, take video of yourself. When this foot just contacts, that's when we're judging it. Your chest should look mostly like this when that foot hits the ground. And it's when the first little thing from your cleat or your shoe hits. So exactly right there is where he's taking weight. Right there. That's too far forward. He's losing a lot of power. He's leaking a lot. Okay. You'll see this photo before. You've seen a picture in this position, but it's later. So they've already landed, and then they rotate into this position. He's rotating in the air, so he's losing power and putting more stress on his elbow. So that's handbrake and chest direction. So now let's look at arm timing, because I said here how we want him to land like this and this, but we don't want him to land with his hand like that. So let me explain that for you. So from the rear view here, when you land, and we can see this great with him actually. So boom, right there. The research from the ASMI says that you want to have your arm not level like this at 3 o'clock and not at 12 o'clock yet either. When your foot just touches down, you want to be around 10 or 11 o'clock. So imagine 12 is here, 6 is here, 9, and 3. When you land, your arm should be here to here, somewhere in that 10 to 11 o'clock range. And if you say, okay, why? Well, if I'm down here, my arm won't catch up fast enough as my hips start to powerfully rotate. So my arm will lag behind, and I'll have a more obtuse angle at my elbow, which puts more stress on my elbow. Now, if I land up here, which everyone thinks you have to be to that like L position, that like 90-degree elbow position, you eventually get there, but you get there after your hips start to rotate. If you're up here too soon, your arm only lays back there to there. It's not very far. You won't get as much power as you want. So when you're here, your arm lays back farther. That sort of like spiraling action is more pronounced and more explosive. But when you have a 90-degree angle at your elbow, which Cole does a pretty good job with, so you see right here, see that 90-degree angle? That's the angle we want. That produces the right amount of force with the least amount of stress. We don't want to have a very sharp angle. We don't want to have a very obtuse angle like this. So that looks good. But we want to get the maximum rotation that we can, and that is where good timing comes in. So again, from behind here, we want to see here, not 9 o'clock or below. That's even worse. So we want to be at 10 to 11. Very, very important, okay? And again, in our views here, you would be able to see, actually we go to rear view for this one, obviously. So from the rear view, arm timing, and then we have a nice video showing. So again, I have some illustrations for all these 10, or that's 12, that's 9, this is the 10, and that's anywhere in that green zone is good. So if you watch him go, this is an upper 90s thrower, he's a friend of ours. So if you watch when he lands, boom, right there. Very, very good. Naturally very good arm timing. Okay, so that's arm timing, incredibly important. It's going to put more stress on your elbow and shoulder if it's not right, and you're going to either throw harder or slower or really struggle to get on top of your breaking ball if it's not right. All right, next thing, let's go over the first acceleration movement, and he's a very good example of this. So when we land, and this is partly again because of his handbrake, which you wouldn't think the handbrake is that important, but it is. So when he lands, I'm judging, and I've watched a million bullpens from behind the catcher. When I watch these bullpens from behind the catcher, I'm looking for, when he lands here, his chest should move to me, and his center of mass, like his center of his chest, should move towards the catcher. We're going to rotate anyway. We don't need to extra rotate, because then our hand flies around the side of the ball, and everything becomes slurvy. We can't get on top of our changeup. We can't make a sinker sink, and we sort of cut the ball a lot. So when you land, your first movement of acceleration, so your body's trying to accelerate the baseball, should be mostly forward towards the plate. So if you see with Cole, he lands and there's a lot of rotation, right? See how his shoulder's still yanking out to the side? There's a lot of rotation that's then transferred up to his arm. You can see from here to here, he's kind of sliding around the ball, right? Now let me show you in contrast what that looks like when we don't do it that way. First acceleration, boom. So he's a very good example right here of a good first acceleration movement. So watch how this is different. The glove arm is still going to go out. It has to fold. But do you see how much more his chest comes towards us? Watch it follow that green arrow to a much more significant degree. Glove arm flips, chest, and that center logo is moving towards us. Even if you're a lower arm slot guy, it's still going to look a little more like this and a little less like our previous example. So that's what a good first acceleration movement is. When I'm watching from behind the catcher, I can see, based on what they do and what they do normally, if it's going to be a strike or not. So if this pitcher right here if he looks just like this most of his throws, but then on one of them, I see him really yank out, I know before the pitch even gets delivered, if he does like this on one, I know it's going to be like either way up top, and he's going to get way behind it, it's going to hang, or he's going to yank it into the ground. So the first acceleration movement, where does our chest go towards the plate? This is something that's not like a traditional mechanical thing, like the 90-degree elbow and lead with your hip and stride 90% of your stride length and do all these other things. This is a thing that's a pitching coach thing, less of a biomechanics thing. It's, are you applying force through the baseball and taking your center of mass towards the catcher when you land? All good pitchers do this. When you throw from a lower arm slot, there is more rotation. So don't get me wrong. Like Chris Sale looks somewhere between here and here, but they're still applying a lot of force towards the plate. So this is really crucial to look for. If you're not throwing enough strikes, this is probably a major reason why. Because when I see first acceleration movement being very sideways, the hand positions get so far out of whack and the arm gets left so far behind, or it has to catch up and gets way in front, and the pitch never goes where you want it to go. Think about it. We're taking our chest right to the strike zone. Watch him take his chest and his chin and his elbow and then finally his hand right towards the plate. Like, you can see it, right? It's very obvious, but this is something you may not have ever thought to look for before. So it's very, very important. Okay, so that's first acceleration movement. We have one more to go. Let's do arm finish. So watch Cole as he follows through. So you see how his head and everything's rotating outside of his body. And then watch how low he gets here. And then watch his arm. So see how this arm is pretty long? We want that arm to be bending as we follow through. It sounds like counterintuitive advice because we think lower is always better on a follow through. And certainly if you're stopping your follow through here, like many young pitchers do, that's not good because it's like throwing the brakes on way too soon. The arm needs a really long follow through. But watch how his body continues to go down. Let me slow it down even more. His arm is releasing the ball here, and then it's kind of staying with his body, right? Look, the arm's still out, still out, still out, still out, still out, because his upper body's going down so much. His arm hasn't actually followed through it all yet, right? And then finally, it goes down a little bit, and then it immediately comes back. It doesn't follow through as far as we want to. So we actually want to keep our chest a little bit taller. We would actually like to follow through more like from this position here, and then our arm just sort of whip through and finish, and that's going to allow our elbow to bend and not put so much stress on our bicep and our labrum. So our labrum is a shoulder stabilizer. It's just passive soft tissue, and that's in your shoulder, and your bicep tendon connects to it. So when the bicep is really active, so when you have a stiff arm, straight finish, that bicep tendon pulls harder on the labrum than it needs to. So we want the elbow to bend a little bit after we release the pitch. But when we get too low, see how he goes below parallel? Our body kind of blocks our arm, and then we can't follow through as far as we want to. So let me show you from the, where's the glove side? Right here. I only do a couple from the glove side. So let's look at torso finish, arm finish. See how he stays a little higher up? He could even be like a hair higher himself. But his arm gets so much farther through than Cole's did because he's staying higher and his arm can travel farther through. He doesn't have quite as much bend here, but he actually does a really good job bending his elbow after he finishes, as you can see later on. So like with me, you can see my elbow's bending at the end. I'm staying a little bit higher up and allowing my arm to travel all the way through. And let's see if he follows through here. Boom. See how his elbow bends at the end, that little bend? He's getting a lot farther and a lot more finish there. So that is arm finish. We want to make sure we're not blocking ourselves. We should actually stay a little bit higher so that our elbow can bend and release some of the pressure that our bicep can create by being too active in our follow through. Okay, so those are 5 very important flaws. Obviously, the arm finish is something you can consciously work on just towards. Really, there's not much of a fix except for just thinking about it a little bit, staying a little taller, not folding down. Now his leg collapses a little bit, so his leg being a little stiffer can help that. But arm finish itself, you just have to kind of think about letting your elbow bend a little more towards the end. But those are 5 really important flaws that can help your arm feel better, that can help you throw harder and throw more strikes very, very easily. And again, we'll go through 26 of those in our course, and it's a very, very important to address those as soon as we can. So let me take you back here. So the question is then, what do you do about it? So, scouring YouTube is great. I've learned a ton from YouTube. There's a ton on Instagram you can learn now. Like even all these little micro blogging and social media platforms, like they can be great resources. But you have to know how these fit into your unique mechanics, and you can't necessarily get an analysis from someone else's analysis or from someone watching some other pitcher do it this way. You need to know where you're at today, and that's what my course can do. It's going to give you the tools and the knowledge, and you're going to continue to hone that knowledge over time, because you're going to go through it again and again and again, go through the analysis, go through the other videos that I have to teach you about it. Every drill you need is in there. Everything you'd want as a coach, as a dad, as a player is there for you to continue to analyze your mechanics on the go. So that's what you need over time. And then over time, hopefully, you've gone through these videos so many times that you just take video and you can immediately pick out your own flaws without needing to go through my video with you. And you're your own pitching coach then. You're free. You can do whatever you want to do. You can constantly reevaluate. It's always good to have a pitching coach. Even big leaguers have pitching coaches, obviously. There was always something that I couldn't see myself. And I was mostly my own pitching coach for the vast majority of my college career. I got a great one, Tim, towards the end of my college career. But I was mostly my own pitching coach in college and almost entirely in pro ball. So as far as like my mechanics and all the things I was doing, it was almost always me. But every time I got someone else to watch and to give me feedback who knew what they were doing, it was always a benefit. They always saw something that could help me. But the vast majority of who I am today and who I was in baseball was created by my own practice, by being my own pitching coach. And again, I've had so many great influential coaches that helped me get where I needed to go. But by the time I got pretty far along the road or far down the road, I needed to do a lot of it myself because my catch partner didn't know, my other coach didn't know, or in pro ball, you're kind of on your own for most of your throws. Again, you'll do 10,000 throws a year. Most of them will only be supervised by yourself. So my course is, again, it's not going to hold you hostage. I'm going to give you the tools to be free, to do less, to pay for less pitching lessons, to pay for just less other video tools, to spend less time wasted on YouTube trying to figure out what you need next. This will tell you what you need next because we're going to analyze your mechanics, and then I'm going to give you the exact thing straight from my brain that says, when you have this problem, this is what you do to fix it, and this is what you think about when you fix it. And if you don't get the exact solution you need, if you feel like you've gone through and you have something that's not quite clear, email me, call me, tell me. I will put it in there. I will make sure that this is the resource, the last resource that you need for pitching mechanics, all right? So I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. I'm really passionate about giving you the knowledge that I've accumulated over all these years. So if you sign up for my course, you're going to get a lot of additional stuff. So I've got some great bonuses just for a limited time. They do expire in just a day or two. So a 4-week strength training program. It's on a digital program called Traineroic. It's written by me. It's got arm care also included, so you can see a comprehensive arm care program. That's also included in the same digital program. It's amazing. It's a great app for both Android and iPhone. So you get that for free if you sign up for the course. You also get full access to the course, obviously. Even if you do the payment plan, you'll get all the future updates. If you tell me it needs something, I will fix it. I promise you, I'm here to give you the greatest experience with this course possible. So if you need something from me, or if you're like, hey, I went through this, Dan, and I feel like I did it right, but would you peek at my son's mechanics? Let me know. I'll help you out. And you're going to get a $100 discount if you sign up today. So that's a total. Oh, last link, don't let me forget. There's a yearly throwing plan. It's 50 or 59 pages. It's how to map out your entire year. So it's 5 different phases: in season, rest, off speed or off season, slow speed, off season, high speed, and then preseason. It'll tell you exactly how to go through your year if you're an amateur pitcher. If you're a pro pitcher, it's still mostly the same thing. If you're a college pitcher, you're going to be under the direction of your college, but this is going to help you plan out how much throwing to do, what types of throwing to do throughout the week, what to do on day 4 if you pitched on day 1, all that sort of stuff. It's really comprehensive. That's a really tough thing to figure out. How much should I do? When should I rest? When should I start ramping up? How do I ramp up? It's all in there. So it's a really big PDF. So that's also included. There's over $307 worth of really good bonuses and that discount in there. So like I said, you've nothing to lose. I do have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you take the course, you go through it, you don't love it, keep the bonus stuff, and I will refund you, no questions asked. But I promise, like I said, if you have an issue with it, talk to me about it. I'm going to add to the course as we go to make it better. I'm really excited that it could be the best possible solution for any coach, player, or baseball parent. So let me know. So I've got a couple questions that I want to answer. So number 1, arm slot. Where do you fall on arm slot? Arm slot is something that I don't typically tinker with for most pitchers. So usually when they have a really low arm slot, and parents and coaches are good at picking out stuff for the eye test. Like they see like, hey, I'm not a pitching coach and I didn't pitch, at a high level, but what I see my son doing doesn't look right. Arm slot is often one of them. When you see a kid who has a much lower or much higher arm slot than normal, it looks different, right? So arm slot is a slave to everything else. I almost never change arm slots. I fix mechanics. So if you land downhill or if you land flying open too much, your arm slot will go lower. If you have really tight hips or if you rotate too much, your arm slot will go higher. So typically, every kid, every pitcher has an arm slot that they're naturally going to be the most comfortable with. And I just try to find that for them. I just want to find that for them. If we fix their mechanics, their arm slot will become what it naturally wants to be. So like a guy like Chris Sale or Madison Bumgarner, they throw a lower arm slot. Why? Because that's just how they threw. That's how their body produces force in an efficient and powerful manner. It's not right and it's not wrong, and that's just how they do it. If you put either of those guys higher over top, you'd probably break them. Not like break them like their arm would break, but just like them as a exceptional pitcher, you would make them probably worse. You can't fit everyone into the same mold, and I don't try to do that with arm slot. So arm slot is a really tough question to answer, but if your son has an arm slot that's weird, and I just mean weird by higher than normal or lower than normal, chances are they throw that way because of a mechanical flaw. So we can iron that out, and I guarantee that they'll come down to something that looks much, much easier on them and that passes the eye test. Because like I said, most parents, when they come into me with observations, those observations are correct. They're spotting mechanical flaws. They just don't know how to fix them, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not a hitting coach, and when I see hitting flaw, I can dissect a swing really well because I would exploit those guys when I was pitching, but I don't necessarily know how to give that guy a drill or what to tell him to fix it. It's not my area of expertise. So, kind of the same thing there. Another question that's been very commonly asked is balance point. Do kids still need to do a balance point? Do pitchers still need a balance point? The pitcher's front hip should always be moving throughout the delivery. So if you see someone like Tim Lincecum or Trevor Bauer, those guys do a great job utilizing their body and momentum to have efficient mechanics to throw harder, especially for their size. But most young pitchers should not be moving that much because it's tough to control. Now, and you also don't see that many big leaguers throw with such extreme amounts of like hip motion. So it's not necessarily required to do the job. But at the same time, you don't come to a balance position and stop and then go. There should be a nice flow of athleticism where everything's still constantly moving, but tempo is the big thing. Think about tempo. Does his tempo look like it puts him in a good position to be collected and compact and then to deliver the baseball where it needs to go? If they're going up and stopping and being really kind of slow and then they can't get much momentum going, then yeah, they're probably balancing too much. But at the same time, if they're always like constantly moving through it and they're trying to be really dynamic, and that might not work for them either because they just might not be enough under control. Some things that major leaguers can do or just like high school kids can do, younger kids can't do and get away with. For most kids, having a calm tempo where they're very under control but yet still athletic is kind of like the balance that we're looking for. So that was another commonly emailed question to me that's really important. Last thing that I want to cover is off-speed stuff and command. Command is highly mental. So don't get me wrong, mechanics are absolutely key. It's like getting a pitching machine that's working in fine tune versus a pitching machine that's broken. You have old worn balls, you have an old worn wheel. It's not going to shoot as accurate as a brand new, really well-oiled machine. So pitching mechanics being repeatable is crucial to setting the stage for throwing strikes. But I'm a youth coach and I work with lots of kids and they get out there and there's often not a strong correlation between good mechanics and strike throwing. Now, when they have bad mechanics, they almost never throw strikes. When they have good mechanics, they can often throw more strikes than others, but it still depends on what's up here. Confidence, whether they're easing off the pitch, whether they're really finishing the pitch, or whether they're overthrowing the pitch, all those things have a major impact on strike throwing. So in addition to the physical aspect, the mental aspect needs to be nurtured too. My other course, Ace of the Staff, is all about that stuff. And there's a decent amount of mental stuff in this course as well. But just understand that we're not trying to make kids into robots. We're just trying to make them repeatable. We have to remember as coaches and parents and players that pitching is extremely hard because between everything that happens, there's a gap between stimulus and response. And in baseball, especially as a pitcher, you get the ball back, you have time to think about it, and you have time to throw monkey wrenches in every one of your moving gears of your mechanics. So mechanics are critical. And if your mechanics are not there, you'll never be as good as you need to be. But when the mechanics are there, you still might not be as good as you need to be because this is here. And that's why I have another course that's mental stuff. So when you get through this one and you're really finely tuned, then we take you to the next level with the mental stuff. And that's sort of how it works. And I learned so much in pro ball from failing. I learned how to be aggressive. I learned how to be confident. And even till the very end, I still felt scared on the mound pretty much every time I pitched. There's always this amount of anxiety and nervousness that comes with you that never goes away. So understand that your son, you'll see him back off pitches. Even if he's 21 years old, you'll see it sometimes. When you're higher up, when you're, good college ball and pro ball, you see less of that. But it still happens. You get a little less aggressive. It's almost indiscernible, but it still happens. Whereas a young kid, you'll see him just really ease off and the ball dies on the way to the plate. So just understand that the mental component is extremely difficult to manage and it's extremely important. So help your kids boost their confidence up, remind them that it's just like, hey, look, I don't care if you walk guys. Just go out there and be confident and attack the hitter. If you say that, they won't worry about walking hitters because they'll be like, oh, if I walk a guy, it's not a big deal. We don't want them to walk anyone. But by telling them that it's okay, that we're not worried about as long as they compete and attack the strike zone, we're going to accomplish the same thing. Anytime pitchers are afraid of consequences, they go inside themselves, they get that fight or flight, and they flee, and then they don't throw as many strikes. When you say, hey, just attack, I got you, I'm behind you, I don't care what happens as long as you attack, as you compete with the strike zone, fire it in there. That's what usually, for me as a coach, helps kids get back on track. So that's, I think, what I want to wrap up here with today. Again, if you've been toying around YouTube, if you're trying to like this system and that system, I would just say stop. Let me guide you through it step by step. I do this for a living. I pitched for a long time. I've been hurt. I've been healthy. I've been a slow thrower. I've been a hard thrower. And I'm here for you. If you take the course, correspond with me, stay in touch. I've got a great chat group. I'm always available by email. And if you need me, I have a VIP option where I'll do all the analysis yourself as well. So that's also on sale with this course. So I've got a VIP option, I've got a regular option, and I've got a payment plan option, which you'll still get full access to the course, and you'll get lifetime access for it with all of the options. So there's always something there for your budget. So check it out. Thanks for visiting and being with me on this webinar, and I'll hope to see you soon.